Hey there, y'all. It's Jala, and this is something a little different. I'm turning down the volume a little bit here and there, as you can see, trying to figure out what works for me so I don't get super distracted by the music. I definitely will just kind of vibe out. So today I am going to be working on my story / text venture game, Shattered Reminiscence. This is part of it. This is all the stuff I've written so far, and this is the layout for the rest of this particular act out of, let's see, 6 acts and an epilogue. So this is about the halfway point. This is massive. This has a lot going on. So we're on 54, which is all the way back here. Right. So this is where we're at. I already scripted the basics here, and it looks like none of my images are pulling up. I'll have to fix that later. Anyway, this is supposed to indicate where the thing is happening and who is interacting. I don't know why that's not working right now, but it doesn't particularly matter. I know who's in this scene. So, cool. Spirit City is going over here, so I've got some kind of background music, although I want to turn it down a little bit more, I think, since I'm going to be typing and writing. So, with all of this, I've got prologue. I can kind of collapse that. Chapter 1, or Act 1, Act 2. Ah, and here's a Dave. What's up, Dave? Starting the stream. Dave will be hanging out with me too, but he's going to be in the room, just not on my computer or anything. He is currently playing Live Alive or Live Alive or Live Alive. I don't know how the fuck that's supposed to work out. Anyway, cool. So, the first thing I need to do is go read through all of this again so that I can do some editing. I did some of this typing this morning early, and this is the first draft. So, I should probably go through some of that first. So, that's the first thing on the menu for today. But, first, I do need to figure something out. Because, so one of the characters, Etienne, he's French, as you might tell by the name. I do not know how to say some of the words this man says, like this one right here. This is my heart. This is what this means right here. So I have pulled up a video, and we are all going to learn together how to say my heart in French. So here we go. Let me pause this music so we can have very clear.
Bonjour, this is Julian the Frenchman who makes French pronunciation videos here on YouTube, and we are looking at how to pronounce this French phrase, literally meaning my heart. This is a phrase that you would use when you're literally talking about your heart, but also you could use it to mean my love or my loved one.
My love.
How do you go about pronouncing it? In French, in France, we would say it as mon cœur, mon cœur. But it'd be fine in English to say it as mon cœur, from French, mon cœur. Here are more videos on how to pronounce more French words.
Okay, I do not need to go to your series of other French words, Mr. Julien the Frenchman, but that is mon cœur. Okay, that's hard. It's like, you gotta kind of gurgle it in the back of your throat or something. I don't know how to make that exact sound. He did give me the English version of this, but you better believe I'm gonna go and watch that video again the moment I get to that word. Okay, so here we go. Act 3. Existence was snatched from the stark luminescence once more as Christine gasped back into consciousness. She was lying on lush carpet in what appeared to be the dining room. There was a large window to her left filled with the blackness of the night. The lights were on inside the room. That means someone was in here. No time to dwell on that, though, she thought as she scanned the room, everything eerily quiet. Behind her was a mahogany china cabinet filled with expensive-looking, delicate pieces from a century-long past. In front of her, a matching sideboard. To her right was the massive, ornately carved dinner table and 6 similarly opulent chairs facing each other. Beyond this were a swinging door to what she assumed was the kitchen and the sliding door that likely led into the hall. A ficus was thriving in one corner, ignorant of
Incoming
the
ad break.
of minds and hearts of the people wandering its midst. As she stood, Christine noted the immense mirror on the right wall, as well as 3 detailed oil portraits to the left. She reflected on what occurred before the white flash which partially reset the world. Her skin prickled and became clammy. She sauntered over to the mirror and examined her face. Although everything which came before had again been undone, her eyes contained a depth which they had not possessed prior to the destruction of the time machine. The device. It all seemed like forever ago, almost as if everything before happened to someone else entirely. The world contracted and shrank. She was looking down a long, dark corridor at this reflection and seeing an alien figure there, someone she did not quite know, although she looked familiar. So here is the first little divide, and depending on how the player plays the game to this point, which as a matter of fact, I will show. Oh, no, that's not what I want. I want specifically this one. Okay. Here we go. So, particularly, depending upon how they play the game and what they're doing, this is the ink of the text venture so far. You can actually play it here in this little preview window. So depending upon what they do in here, different stats and things change. And so this is one of those first stat changes. So if the player is, we'll go ahead and go with the highlighted part first. This is the fresh stuff that I just wrote, so I'm going to have to do some editing. So if the player has an increased amount of madness, the face took on a hideous aspect, features warping demoniacally as Christine's vision narrowed and darkened. The mouth twisted upward in a grotesque approximation of a too-wide smile, splitting the head apart. The lips thinned into non-existence around bared yellow teeth, which lengthened and sharpened to a maw full of fangs as she watched. The eyes shrank and sunk into their sockets, the brow lowering into a sinister scowl as the cheekbones sharpened, skin stretching thin and taut and gray. The hair began to fall out in clumps, leaving only sparse, grimy strings. Christine shrieked and brought tremulous hands to her face, unable to tear her gaze from the creature in the mirror, who likewise brought its gnarled claws to its features. And as a matter of fact, because I want that emphasis, we are going to put it there. Okay. It glared at her malevolently, then cackled and dug its talons into its face. Okay, so that's the second face. We don't want to have that many faces in a row. This is actually a very fun and cool part. I'll read the whole thing out again after I finish fixing it. We will go with into its visage. Okay. Gouging out its eyes and raking its infectious knives across its deathly features. Searing pain entered Christine's brain. She screamed and recoiled, hitting the dining table and crumbling to the floor in a heap, cradling her head.
Welcome, Double Cakes.
Oh, hey, what's up? Oh, my mic audio could be louder? Huh, okay, maybe that's because I turned down my system volume a little bit. Here, is this better? I turned it up. You'll have to let me know. Let me see. Yeah, I think everything else should be fine otherwise, but I did turn down my overall volume. Okay, great, cool. I hope you're doing well today. I'm doing some editing of some bits of the beginning of Act 3. So right now I'm just doing some proofreading of all of this is stuff I wrote this morning, so I need to go through it. And a very good way to do some editing work is to read it out loud, so that's what I'm doing at the moment. Searing pain entered Christine's brain. She screamed and recoiled, hitting the dining table and crumpling to the floor in a heap, cradling her head. My eyes, my eyes, my face, she wailed, weeping and rocking, desperately to console herself. She knew not how long she cried and rocked and cried, but eventually the agony and panic passed. The world slowly began to stabilize around her. She sniffed as she opened her eyes. And let's see. I just mentioned eyes up here. I don't want eyes again here. It's not too bad, but it says eyes here and also right there. I'll think on that. Wiping her features with the back of her hand. I put features here. I don't want features in two places. Let's see. Let's put this as countenance. Cool. She forced her breath to slow, looking down at her hands and seeing them as she remembered them. Okay, so with those little edits in mind, let me go back up here and I'll start from second paragraph. She reflected on what occurred before the white flash, which partially reset the world. Her skin prickled and became clammy. She sauntered over to the mirror and examined her face. Although everything which came before had again been undone, her eyes contained a depth which they had not possessed prior to the destruction of the time machine. The device. It all seemed like forever ago, almost as if everything before happened to someone else entirely. The world contracted and shrank. She was looking down a long, dark corridor at this reflection and seeing an alien figure there, someone she did not quite know, although she looked familiar, rather. The face took on a hideous aspect, features warping demoniacally as Christine's vision narrowed and darkened. The mouth twisted upward in a grotesque approximation of a too-wide smile, splitting the head apart. The lips thinned into non-existence around bared, yellow teeth, which lengthened and sharpened to a maw full of fangs as she watched. The eyes shrank and sunk into their sockets, the brow lowering into a sinister scowl as the cheekbones sharpened, skin stretching thin and taut and gray. The hair began to fall out in clumps, leaving only sparse, grimy strings. Christine shrieked and brought tremulous hands to her face, unable to tear her gaze from the creature in the mirror, who likewise brought its gnarled claws to its features. It glared at her malevolently, then cackled and dug its talons into its visage, gouging out its eyes and raking its infectious knives across its deathly countenance. Searing pain entered Christine's brain. She screamed and recoiled, hitting the dining table and crumpling to the floor in a heap, cradling her head. My eyes! My eyes! My face! She wailed, weeping and rocking desperately to console herself. She knew not how long she cried and rocked and cried, but eventually the agony and panic passed. The world slowly began to stabilize around her. She sniffed as she opened her eyes. I don't like that. As she unfurled. Let's just do that. Unfurled and sat up, wiping her features with the back of her hand. How about we just do her tears? Let's take that features out of there. She forced her breath to slow, looking down at her hands and seeing them as she remembered them. We're just going to do arms, not hands, because we said hands a bunch of times already. It's not real, it's not real, it's not real, she whispered, her thoughts becoming a soft and desperate mantra she chanted over and over again. Eventually, she was able to stand. She composed herself and studiously avoided the mirror. So that's if you have madness higher than 13. And from there, then it kind of continues on to the next little section. And if you don't have madness higher than 13, all you get is, she shook her head to clear it, blinking rapidly as she stirred from her reverie. And then we move on. Either path will move on. Turning around, she examined the place settings on the table and noted that each placemat bore a different design. She then walked to the opposite side of the room to inspect the portraits. Christine had the funny feeling that she'd seen these paintings before. She crossed her arms and shifted her stance, lifting a finger to tap her gently pursed lips. All at once she remembered. The box. Actually, that should be emphasized. She opened her bag and rummaged inside, pulling it out and flipping the lid open to examine it again. Sure enough, the portraits hanging on the wall matched the miniatures inside the puzzle cask, which she'd barely glanced at before. Surely the solution to the tumblers is in the here somewhere, she thought, turning her attention to the artwork. The first painting was of Etienne himself, although he wore a half mask and handsomely embroidered jacket. It suits him, Christine mused. His whole demeanor is from a different century, something I like about him, honestly. The background of the painting was a moody, indistinct haze with soft candlelight just outside the frame illuminating a small table upon which rested a black and green vase. Fresh goldenrods burst from the top in a riot of sunny color which seemed very out of place in the otherwise somber setting. His black hair was slicked back and worn a bit longer than would have been fashionable for gentlemen in the era before photography was widely popularized. His nose, the part she could see beyond the mask that was straight and ever so slightly curved up at the end. Curved upward. I like that better than curved up. His lips formed a perfect Cupid's bow that she envied. His jawline was strong and masculine. Although Etienne's expression was neutral, something about his piercing, stormy blue-gray eyes arrested her attention. As she examined them, it was almost as though they were pulling her in, like a strong magnet affixing to metal. She took a lumbering step forward. Her head felt fuzzy again, like this image was ensorceling her. She was unsure how long she stood gazing into those painted pupils, slowly leaning in closer and closer until she was nearly nose to nose with the two-dimensional representation of her bow. All at once, she shook herself free and quickly moved on to the next portrait without looking back. Christine felt the blood drain from her cheeks and extremities, pooling in her torso before pushing insistently upward through her carotids to her brain, all in a rush that filled her ears. The woman in the painting looked strikingly similar to her upon first glance, although a bit younger. Her hair was a touch lighter than Christine's, a rich honeyed blonde to her own deep caramel brown, but they shared practically identical sapphire blue eyes. Their face shapes and overall builds also matched, although the portrait's eyes were set a touch wider, the lips a little thinner, the nose a bit more Scandinavian than hers. Who is this? She wondered to herself, reaching out and almost touching the painting before retracting her hand. The woman in the portrait's flaxen hair was adorned with a flower crown woven of deep purple anemones. Almost apprehensively, she moved on to the final painting. Exhaling her held breath in relief as she saw the young man in the final portrait was wholly unfamiliar to her, she focused her attention on him. A nobleman according to his attire and bearing, with a cherubic soft face split incongruously through by a small blonde mustache. His sky-blue eyes seemed a bit moist and rounded, as if he possessed a gentle disposition. His champagne-colored crown of hair was trimmed short on the sides and a bit longer on top. It looked as though he, or perhaps a servant, styled it meticulously with pomade. Affixed to his jacket was a bright corsage featuring a tiger lily. And if you are thinking this sounds like some kind of Resident Evil-ass puzzle, don't worry, that's a thing that's going to be mentioned. So, let me see. I don't like she focused her attention on him. I want it to say something else. But for now I'll leave that alone. It doesn't flow quite the way I want it to, so I'll have to think about that. Okay. Stepping away from the paintings, Christine looked back down at the place settings. The one directly in front of her featured an embroidered rose. She picked up the dishes resting on the mat and noticed a triangular patterning which matched one of the tumblers in the box. Everything clicked into place as she realized what this was all about. Unsure whether she should laugh at the absurdity of it or just get on with unlocking the box, she settled for a moment of snark. I gotta hand it to you, Etienne. You demonstrate some elaborate dedication to the bit. She walked around the table, finding the flowers in the paintings represented among the placemats. Did he have those portraits painted and these placemats embroidered solely as a hint system if he forgot the code? Christine made a mental note to ask him, provided they found themselves in better circumstances somehow. As she rolled the last tumbler into place and heard a soft click, her mirth died on the grim line of her lips. I have to get us all out of here. So Double Cakes, you're asking you're curious how would implement that in the game. Implement what? The madness? The madness here? This part right here? Or you mean like the puzzle itself? The puzzle is already solved by her, so this is all just being narrated to you. That's not something that's you actually have to solve here. So this is something that's just narrated. Yeah. So in an instant like that, if I really wanted the player to solve the puzzle here, which I didn't have that happen because to me that feels superfluous at this point, because once you understand what's going on with, hey, look, there's flowers on these placemats. Hey, look, there's shapes. Hey, look, these paintings, these are all things that are, this box and the tumblers and all of this. Like, there's not a reason for the player to have to do that. And, like Resident Evil puzzles, they're really like, they're not puzzles. They're not puzzles. So, to me, they're just busy work. So, I don't feel that would actually be quite fun to put in here. Now, there is a puzzle that I want to see if I can implement in this game, but it's going to require more programming knowledge than I currently have. That'll be a thing for a later time. But there is a puzzle that I'm hoping to have to insert into, I believe, Act 5, maybe? But we'll see. We'll see. But this being a text venture, I'm limiting the verbs that you have. Like, you've got choices, and these choices pan out differently. You also don't have direct game overs, so no matter what you do, the game is going to continue to march you forward. And I believe that's a thing that I decided on pretty early on as a result of being kind of soured by visual novels whose flow, like this, okay? You go through this whole flow, but like there's a bunch of dead ends, right? All of this leads to some kind of dead end branches off every little path here, there, and everywhere.
Incoming ad break.
Then you have to finish those branches before you can actually advance the plot, because there's some kind of information you have to get, so you're forced into a game over. And that feels bad to me. And that's not what I want to do for the player. I want it to kind of funnel you, and it does affect the ending, but the ending is going to be, affected directly by all of the choices that you made. Like, yes, the game will advance. The end of the game will be different depending upon what you do and where all of your stats and stuff are. So that's my kind of mini soapbox. That's what I think at this time. Of course, this is the outline. This is the basic text with a little tiny bit of script, and then here is some scripted bits for just the pure text venture part of it before adding UI and before adding music and artwork and things like that. So, things are subject to change in the final version, of course. So, okay. So, she opens up the box. Inside the box, just as Etienne advised, she found a key. The bow was shaped like a treble clef. Custom keys, too? Sure, why not? Thinking about the mansion's layout, she mused about what this would unlock. It was the size of a door key, so she would first try the door she hadn't opened yet. Christine recalled the one in the foyer, as well as the remainder of the second floor she hadn't had time to explore yet. As she hadn't had time to explore it yet. With the shadows and Kiaran roaming around, I need to try the closest one first. Just for good measure, she walked to the swinging door and listened. Nothing. Good, she thought, moving it very slowly and peeking her head around it. As she surmised, beyond was the kitchen. As this wasn't useful to her in the moment, she readied her weapon and carefully slid the primary door open, peeking out into the hallway. Seeing and hearing nothing, she stepped out and headed off to the left, towards the foyer. Let's see. I prefer, peeking out. She stepped out. Let's just see, peeking into the hallway. There, I just don't want that many outs in a row. Okay. So let's see. Yeah, this is the very last thing that I was working on, and I did not have a whole hell of a lot of time to work on this part, and I stopped here. So, let's see. First, hey Dave, how did all of that sound?
It was better with the little edits you were doing.
Yeah, I needed to do
Just
those
to keep
edits.
some of my repetition out.
Right, I know. I always have to do some edits on the repetition and stuff because the first version, the very, very first rough draft, is always going to be prone to having some repetition. You're just kind of getting it out there. I suppose I should put the music back on. Okay. Let's see. So, as she advanced toward the fork, Etienne staggered into view, presumably from the stairwell. His head was wreathed in black mist, his shadow doubling and writhing like a living being. Christine froze for a moment. Oh man, this is so hard for me to do with this music. I'm sorry, I have to turn that off again. Actually, what I need to do is turn it down to like the lowest volume possible. That way it's still playing, but it's not very loud. Okay. Christine froze for a moment, her breath caught in her throat as she noticed what appeared to be a gun in his right hand. Fuck, fuck, fuck! Suddenly she recalled her own armament, so feeble in the face of a firearm. Still, it was all she had. She readied the insert the weapon that she has at this point in front of herself defensively. So, here's another section where it depends on how the game is going, and there's alternate paths available. I have not written one of these, and I only started writing this section, so there's not really a point in me trying to read this out loud because I am writing it currently. So, this will be me typing quietly and letting the music play for a little bit. Okay, let me see. Zoom back into where I was at. Okay. Okay, I finished that node. Oh, this is going to be hard. The next one is a recap of all the different stuff that happened in Act 2. So that's going to be a lot of different things I'm going to have to write there, because I'm going to have to go track down all of the different things that happened in the end of that section. Okay. First, though, I need to rewrite this last little section. Okay. 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 So I've gotten a little bit further, but I want some opinions. So she advanced toward the fork, and Etienne staggered into view, presumably from the stairwell. His head was wreathed in black mist, his shadow doubling and writhing like a living being. Christine froze for a moment. Her breath caught in her throat as she noticed what appeared to be a gun in his right hand. Fuck, fuck, fuck! Suddenly she recalled her own armament, so feeble in the face of a firearm. Still, it was all she had. She readied the insert weapon here in front of herself defensively. So, in the case of some very bad things happening, or Etienne
Incoming ad
not
break.
liking her very much at this point, and you have to try real hard for that kind of a situation to happen, then he responds, "That won't help you." The Frenchman's accent had thickened in his weakened state. It took Christine a moment to parse the English. He smirked at her lack of understanding, gesturing to the implement in his hand. "If I were not in a hurry, you might find yourself in some trouble." A low, throaty, rumbling laugh following his words. Followed his words. Make a sentence for real. Okay, off with you. The darkness enveloped him and seemed to pour out of his mouth as he spoke. His shoulder brushed hers as he strode past, and strings of shrill fear pierced her from 1,000 different directions. She quavered but held her ground, immobile for some time after she no longer heard his footfalls. And if he is okay with you, then he says, okay, this is the part where I need to figure out how to say that word. I think it's mon cœur. Okay, what was it? Let me bring this back. Okay. Let's go back to this.
Mon cœur.
Mon
But it'd be
cœur.
fine in
Mon cœur. Okay, that's mon cœur. Okay. Hold mon cœur. I'm butchering this so bad. Anybody who's French who's hearing this is going to be so mad. That's okay. The Frenchman's accent had thickened in his weakened state. It took Christine a moment to parse the English, but as he placed the weapon and box of ammunition on the sideboard next to them, she relaxed slightly. She held her weapon steadily in place all the same. Etienne nodded with great effort. Yes, he breathed laboriously. You can do this. He backed several paces away from her slowly. That is for you, chérie. He gestured towards the gun, which she noticed had some bright yellow parts. It is a 9mm taser. The box contains 2 more rounds. It is for you to wield against any who stand in your way. He gazed at her pointedly as he emphasized his meaning, including me. She made a soft noise of dismay, which was almost a whimper. Etienne looked down as the rolling blackness entered into his nostrils with each slow breath. Christine, he uttered quietly, you must. So, at this point in the narrative, I have it set up where there's going to be basically a recap where they acknowledge that the time loops are happening and like it's scattering them around every time one of them dies. So like this is the official reveal of something that the player would have recognized by this point anyhow. But if he doesn't like her very much, he does not hang around. So that would be probably internal dialogue where Christine is just thinking about what happened and then decides that, like this is definitely what's happening, probably. And as for if he's okay with her, then yes, then they would have a whole kind of discourse about what's going on.
Okay. So, what's the part?
So basically, originally I was trying to, I was intending on them still having a conversation, even if he's not super happy with her at this particular moment. Like if you somehow manage to get him to such a low state of care, It's hard to do, but it's doable. But there's also an option where if you take a certain pathway or if you do certain things in succession, he can possibly do her injury / murder her in the prior act. So that is one of the various options of very many things that can happen in that particular chapter. So in this act, I felt like if he doesn't like her, if he's like that low of an affection that he's not going, because in Act 2, at the end of Act 2, if he doesn't like you very much, he's not going to help you against the other bad things that are happening. And if he really doesn't like you, like if the affection is especially bad, if he really, really doesn't like you, like you've done all the wrong things and fucked literally everything up, he can possibly kill Christine. So at this point, I don't feel that if he's that bad off that he's not helping you and you die as a result, or potentially die as a result, or he actually kills you as a result, he's not going to want to stick around and talk to you. And so when I was just working on this, I figured him just kind of being condescending and kind of menacing, but then like stumping off because he's on a time limit, I felt that that was a better route for him to take at this point. Yeah. Right. So, as for talking, he's also under a lot of duress. So, like, their discussion of what happened in the prior chapter has to be fairly quick because he's not going to have much time to sit and have a whole discussion. He needs to, like...
No, because in both cases he's under a time constraint.
Well, they're all under a time constraint,
Well, yeah,
so...
he's considering.
Right. He's considering that he's got a time constraint, and he also doesn't want to have the double shadow and the darkness that's overtaking him actually overtake him to where he does something to Christine. So, like, you know, at this point, he's just for her protection, he needs to get out of her sight, you know.
Yeah.
And so, you know, like there's a lot of different things of considering there, but so I really have to find like the kind of most succinct way, because they've already talked about so in the prologue stuff happens, and it kind of is the lead up to Act 1. During Act 1, that's the first time a time loop triggers, and then at the beginning of Act 2 they had a longer discussion about things. So at this point, all of the very basics and details about, you know, as much as the characters are able to understand at this point before they uncover additional information via the player character of Christine, I've already gone over things. They just basically need to have a quick touch base, acknowledge what happened at the end of the last act, and then basically say, it seems like stuff is reset, but only sort of, because Christine still is carrying around stuff that she had in Act 1 because it was on her person, but like all the damage that was done to her or to any of the other characters when they die or are injured or whatever, you know, that gets reset. And the damage to the place prior to, like the damage to the place prior to when the first loop happened is still there. Anything that happened after that to the environment has been undone as well. So they time travel in terms of like what's on their person, but everything else in the place kind of resets. So if they have something like, say for example, Christine ends Act 2 with a weapon, a tire iron, a hammer, or a crowbar, she still has that weapon as she starts Act 3 because it's on her person. So anything that they have on their person goes with them. So, but other than that, like that's the only thing that doesn't reset basically. But also their memories don't reset. They can remember what happened. Although like as the madness keeps affecting them, as things start to break down and the environment starts to deteriorate, which is what's going on at this point, the beginning of the deterioration is happening. and kind of pushing them towards, oh shit, we have to do something, because not only are there critters loose, and not only are we losing our minds, but also this place that we're in is crumbling because it's its own separate kind of world situation, like its own little bubble, and now it's breaking. You know, like that kind of ramps up, and chapter 3 is like it's more exploratory. It's not a super rush at this point yet, but the later chapters are going to be a little bit more hectic. Possibly also pretty short, depending. Depends on how things go between now and then. So, okay, so I need to continue from Etienne's hateful bit with Christine, kind of recapping. The problem is there's a lot of different ways that could have ended. So, as part of my studying and making sure that I have everything done and kept in order, here's a state tracker during Act 2, the mandatory madness levels and affection levels, and the potential plus or minus that can happen depending upon what you do during that chapter, and then potential endings for this act. What happens in this act? Okay, at the beginning of Act 3, what has happened? So, you know, and then here, by the start of Act 3, everybody's at this particular kind of level. So yeah. At this point, what we're looking at, okay, that's who's gonna die. Potential endings. Okay, so the endings. Phew. There's a lot of them, though. Let me toggle over. Okay, so in ink, there's Act 1. Random encounters. Yes, there's also random encounters which also affect madness and things. There's also going to be some other random events that will happen. So, things will vary even if you are doing the exact same thing every single time you play. Now, let's see. Act 3. No, that's what I was working on. Okay. I really thought I had written down like where each of the different no, I didn't actually write down like which of these tags, oops, wrong window. Which of these tags is the ending for each one? Huh. How about this? I can just go 012, which is heading to Act 3, and then I can figure out which ones are which. Okay. Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of bad things. All of these characters are going to be deeply, deeply traumatized by the end of this game. Even at their best positive endings that you can possibly do, they're going to be definitely traumatized. Okay. Let me see. All right, so this is Etienne getting killed. I really need to make like a list of which of these is which. Matter of fact, I'll do that now. Although I keep on covering up my Spirit City so you can't see my cute little avatar doing her typing. Okay, let me see. I don't think I can get rid of this preview window. Let me see. All was blood. Okay. This will be a lot of fun to play through, I think, when it's all done. It's a lot of moving parts to get to the ending because of all of the branching paths that I've got going. Need to shrink these windows so they're not going to cover up my little avatar so much. There. Okay, at least you can still see it. Yeah, it is pretty complex because, like, these are all the endings for the last chapter right here. So, and then, like, depending, things branch out and you can go any number of different ways, and there's a lot of different things that happen, and then there's a whole section of just random stuff that can happen. Yeah, there's a lot of different things going on at all times. This is why, like, having Artisy Giraffe to work on this is so important, because it allows me to do a little bit more planning. Like, I can do something similar to this in Scrivener, but I'm already accustomed to using this. So, yeah, but this is all the various ways that any particular section can pan out. But yeah, like, in this particular case, I actually don't think I need to keep Artisy up. I'll just minimize it for now. Okay. I believe this is the part where, let's see. So Kieran is coming after Christine at this point in Act 2 to use her as a blood sacrifice, but and trying to figure out, like, which way everything is going to pan out as the story continues is also a lot of work, because, you know, you've got all these different things that could happen, and then all the different branching paths, and then so what's going to be different as things move forward, and how is that going to ultimately change everything that goes forward. And, like, that's a concern. So basically the time loops in this game happen every time somebody dies. So regardless of whether it's Christine or Kieran or Etienne, which are the three main characters, regardless of whoever dies, it is going to reset everything and start the next act of the game. So you as a player character die, but you don't die because you just get brought back because of the time loop. So even if you were to kick it at any particular part, that's not going to stop
Incoming ad break.
Stop the game at all. So, but that also means that depending upon who died when, different things will happen on the next act. Different potentials will be evidenced. So, you know, like, if one character gets killed by another character in the act before, then they have a grudge that they want to take out on that person, and they are going to be likely to come after them in the next chapter, that kind of thing. Although Christine herself doesn't really, like, harbor that. She's just trying to, like, survive and get out of here. But Etienne and Kieran are very much guys who have some kind of pride and get all worked up into the whole testosterone-driven competition type of thing, to a degree. I mean, Etienne not so much, but he's trying to protect Christine, but he's also losing his mind. So a lot of things happening. So we've got, this one is where Kieran is protecting Christine. Or no, Kieran is coming after Christine, and Etienne is protecting her. So, let's see. Scrivener, there you are. Okay. I need to, let's see. Yeah, that's a prediction of what's going to happen next. Let's see. I think I'll make a new note. Okay, and this one will be... I'll just call it Act 2 Endings, because that's what it's about. So... All was blood? Okay. See, I actually don't know how long this game really is, because with all the branching paths, I don't know how long that actually makes that, because this is something like 40,000 words so far, but that doesn't mean anything because it's got branching paths, so depending upon what branches you go down, that burns some of the text, you know? Let's see. Okay. Okay. Now, stop it. Okay. Stop it. Okay, so Act 2, stop it. Let's see. Okay, that's when Kieran is kind of like summoning the Dark Lord kind of situation. And she wails on him. Let's see. Oh, and then he kills her. So, Kieran. Okay. Okay, what's the next one? Oh, I've already got that one. She took off? Okay. All right. Oh, right. That's when time beasts kill her. Okay. Act 2. I wonder how many different endings there actually are for this prior one. Okay. Okay, well, that's another one where, let's see. I love you, Christine. Okay, so what we'll do is or. Okay. Now. Okay. Christine kills Kieran. Okay. What's the next one? Okay, so that's her killing him again. Cool. Okay. Here we go. Yep. And Okay, so this is Unearthly Cackle. And this one is Kiaran. Oh, but okay, so that actually is Kiaran kills Etienne. Okay. Okay. And then, let's see. And then that is... That is Etienne being a dark and demonic person. Okay. I could have sworn that there was also another way for Etienne to have killed her. Huh. Maybe he just doesn't help her. Maybe it's not quite to the point of him killing her. Let's see. Yeah, that's it. Okay, so Etienne cannot have killed her. Christine kills Kiaran. Kiaran kills Christine. Kiaran kills Etienne. Time base killed Christine. Etienne kills Kiaran. Okay, well then, that cleans things up. I could have sworn that he could have killed her. Okay, so if not, okay, that simplifies things. All right, so hey, what's up, Moxie?
Welcome, Money Smith 777.
Here's me like it's been it's been so long since I worked on this. Oh, excuse me. I had a tickle in my throat, so I had to mute to cough. It's been so long since I worked on this properly because of all the stuff with my dad that I'm just like trying to refresh my memory about what all happened in Act 2 so that I can do Act 3. And I was like, oh man, I thought that this was what was going to happen. And I thought I had written that, but I must have decided against it. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. I was reading some of this out loud. This is some of the stuff that I've worked on today. So, this particular part, though... So, here's a good question. Dave, I'm going to turn to you, and I'm also asking the chat. So, Dave, at this point, Etienne could not have killed, did not kill, doesn't have a potential of killing Christine in Act 2. However, if the affection is low enough, he would have not stood up for her or helped her in the face of Kiaran or time beasts or anything else coming after her. So, in this part, in Act 3, should he be openly hostile? It's getting to the point where he will become hostile eventually in the story. So, should he go ahead and be hostile now, since he already didn't lift a finger to help her in the last act? Or should he just be like, I mean, like, he doesn't have to, should he be threatening? Should he be threatening or should he just be dismissive?
Actually, he should be indifferent, dismissive, than threatening.
Well, I mean, he was already indifferent at the end of Act 2
Okay.
when he let Christine die
Yeah.
without doing
So
anything.
Dismissive is, I feel, a step up. Because you're not.
Yeah.
Now you're just
Dismissive.
like,
Yeah. Okay, so I need to
Out of my
tweak
way,
this.
I'm
So he's not quite to the point at this point of being
yeah.
completely.
Don't get in
Okay.
my way.
Yeah.
And then it turns into like, now you've gotten in my way.
Yeah, so Moxie says Act 2 was definitely Attack of the Femboys. I don't think that's what was going on in that chapter. Hey, what's
Welcome,
up?
Dragon Soft Saturn.
I have not. Have I seen you on Twitch at all, my friend? Have I seen you on Twitch at all? I am just trying to figure out this section because I'm trying to refresh my memory about all of the 7,000 ways that each little section can end. I had to pull out all of these little knots and look at all of these different lines of text to try to figure out where I'm at and go, okay, where am I? What's actually the situation in this chapter? Like I wrote this whole where to go? There. Okay. I have all of this written out. Yeah, you should play my game. I mean, you're getting sort of getting spoilers, but like the part that I'm working on right now in Act 3 is you get some idea. Oh yeah, I've seen you in Moogie streams. I just haven't seen you in mine. I miss Moogie. She hasn't been streaming lately. But yeah, so this is how much I've got planned out. I'm like here-ish. Yeah, I'm right here. This is where I'm at in terms of this story so far. So I have to write all of this before Act 3 is done. No big deal. No big deal. I can do that. It's great. So yeah, I had such a long lapse though that I'm just like, oh man, I need to remember exactly where we're sitting at in this narrative, and I've got state trackers and ending trackers and affections, and here's the potentials and the actuals and all different kinds of other stuff, and this is all the different text. Woo! You have way too much on your plate. Yeah. I know. I'm not mad at anybody who isn't playing it or anything. But I will say that it is helpful that Ruki, bless his heart, is, and I don't say bless his heart in like that weird snide Southern way that people do. I mean like literally. Bless him for playing through, because he helped me find a bug that I had to fix, and I fixed the bug. So now Act 2 will work in its entirety. So you can actually play the game through the end of Act 2. This is Act 3 here. Yeah, as for music though, so as for music, I actually do, I don't remember if I told you this, I do have a little written thing about my idea for the music and like what I want to focus on trying to do, or at least to work on some basic melody lines and things. And like what kind of concept, like how I want the overall thing to sound, what kinds of tracks I envision for it and things, and like all the different scenarios thus far in the writing where these things would play. So like I actually have, like, here's a little summary of a section of the game, where you would have this liminal space drone or ambient music. I'm caught in a white void of nothingness, a numbness, timelessness, nothingness, no sound, no sight, no feeling, no smell, the fear of non-existence. And that's like a part of the game. And so that particular track would play during that particular section. So like the way that I wrote it out, it's like I have little prompts that are basically a very short summary of when this would be playing, like what kind of scenarios these things would play. So, like here, the ex-convict X wants me to worship his Lovecraftian devil god. Is for track number 13, Delusion, Madness, the Eldritch Horror is coming. So, like I have some prompts. Even if you don't read the whole thing or play the whole thing, there's some pretty apparent prompts in there. I do want to make melody lines and stuff for these at the very least, because I want to kind of work in a few little sequences from the actual Phantom of the Opera musical, but not like enough to have like a copyright infringement. Just like little bits that if you listen to the tracks, like you can hear a little bit here and there. So yeah. Oh yeah, the White Void. Okay, well, here. While you're in here, let me just not work on the game and I'll just read you a little bit. So,
Incoming ad break.
ooh, there's an ad break. So, let me see. White is the section of the prologue where he's in this white void of space. And I'll turn off the music for this because the music will kind of distract, I think. So, the memory of her tortured visage was seared into his consciousness, tinged with a halo of white, glazing over with such illustrious intensity that it was torn from his sight forever. He saw nothing at all then, lost in a disorienting void of blinding, hateful light from which he could no longer shroud himself. He floated there, somewhere between life and death. He was unaware of tactile impressions like warmth or gravity, or indeed of air itself. Air. The onset of panic struck him ferociously and unrelentingly in the same fashion as the slaver auctioning him off in his childhood. He gasped, but there was nothing to draw forth into his lungs, and yet somehow he wasn't suffocating. Had his device killed him? He tried to look down at his hands, but saw nothing but barbarous radiance. He squeezed down hard with the appendage holding the blasted contraption, but felt nothing. Each sensation was burned away. It was horrifying, for his mind remained active and alive, yet separated from its casing, or indeed from everything else besides. All he had was a deep and creeping sense of dread beyond all terrors he had ever known. Something nagging at the back of his mind, making him want to turn and see what was there creeping in the impenetrable brightness, and yet unable to move or look. What if this was his terminal absolution for all the grief he'd inflicted? He hadn't feared hellfire, but this. The concept of time began to fade away. He knew not how long this blazing misery persisted, or even whether he was conscious or unconscious. Everything melted until the mirage of her perfect face was the only thing left to him other than the plaguing sense of doom. It seemed that there were flashes of intense, focused clarity within which he saw his entire life playing out in frustrating detail he'd never appreciated in the moment, which tantalized him like the deepest wild lust of the oppressed. In other instances, he seemed to vegetate and stagnate, his soul so weary of the persistent nothingness that it petered out and fizzled, bereft of any fuel to tend its flame of ascendant genius. Hysteria had given way to exhaustion. He was tired of reflection, weary of deprivation, and quite frankly desired nothing more than to end his existence, and yet could not, as there was no body nor agency left to him. His consciousness floated in a timeless vacuum, unable to even draw itself to an end. This black hole froze him forever and ever, eternity upon eternity. No hell was quite like this. Not standing by watching his beloved and that insolent fool falling deeper in love, nor the innumerable tortures of his youth, not the infinite lakes of fire the church would have him confined to. He'd been swallowed and immortalized here, helplessly aware and yet wholly unaware. This limbo invoked a deep delirium. Fantastic ideas and visions filled the last sparks of his mental processes. Fever dreams without the fever. Insanity brought on by the tugging nameless presence he felt without feeling. Slowly, he began to hear faint whirring. Initially, he believed he'd tricked himself and was merely reliving the memory of a time before the stark whiteness scorched him, and yet he squeezed his hand reflexively. Once he'd placed the buzzing. It was his device. He realized that he could feel it again, and he smiled frantically, laughing at the impossibility of it. Had he any air in his lungs to laugh with, he'd have sounded demented. There was an intense flash of heat as a roaring filled his ears. His body thrummed with energy emanating from the object he cradled, and suddenly the light was rent in twain by the blessed darkness. He fell then hard upon the cool earth. He lay still, gasping like a fish who'd been drawn from the water too long and tossed, half dead, back to its rightful abode. He was aware of discomfort in his limbs, but this information evoked overwhelming joy within him, for mere moments earlier he hadn't felt anything at all. He wheezed a worn, half-mad cackle. Was it moments? Never mind, it didn't matter, and he didn't have any desire to reflect further back than the instant he returned to life. Thinking on it suddenly, he scrambled to right his posture as he landed on top of the instrument, or rather, what should have been his machine. Instead, he cast about madly this way and that by the pale moonlight, a soft whimper emitting from his desperate throat and escalating into a fearful cry of terror. Where was it? Where was the blasted thing? It took him what may have been hours to come to terms with the fact that the device had completely vanished. The sky was beginning its transition to pre-dawn blue as he shifted his focus to realize that he'd been deposited atop a fresh grave and was roaming the burial ground like a shadowy vision. The place didn't smell like the city, and the headstones were uncannily precise and clean, uniform in a way nothing seemed to be in that ancient metropolis. The man gazed up at the lightning dome above, coming to the dread realization that his time-traveling machine had worked. He was somewhere other than the deep layer below the city. Where, he couldn't say. Nevertheless, he was nothing if not a survivor. He would learn the lay of the land and start anew. He was rather accustomed to adapting to any environment, no matter how harsh. He would harmonize himself with this place, and then he would master it. His disquieting chuckle was heard exclusively by other night dwellers scrabbling to persist until the succeeding twilight. The haunting melody of the man's impromptu, wordless tune twined itself about the cemetery, carried by the strength of his unearthly singing voice. He stood, pleased to feel every ache and pain of his long imprisonment, and began walking. So that was this is the little tidbit. That was the bit that I mentioned here with the liminal space ambient thing, but then it would probably transition into like a different track after you get past that initial part where he's stuck in the white nothingness of time travel, where he doesn't have a body or the ability to end his life or anything. He's just existing and also not existing at the same time. He has no sensations and no agency. So for me, that's a very, very scary place to be. I think that's possibly the scariest thing in the entire game, is that aspect right there. So, all of that being said, this little section here, he's a bit too hostile, so I need to fix it. So we're going to work on that. But yeah, you don't know Phantom of the Opera well, so you'll have to do your best to catch up on the sounds. Yeah, like if I'm writing melody lines, Daniel, just basic melody lines, and I'm just giving you the gist of something, it'll have a few of the notes, the little bits that I want to reference in there when I hand them over to you. So that's something that you will already have in your possession whenever I can get to that part. But of course, I've got several different other things that I'm working on. But the good thing is this does not have a time limit. I am doing this for me. I don't know how many people are going to read or play this, so it's me doing it for me, and whoever else wants to come along for the ride. But let's see. Let's make Etienne a little bit less aggressive here. Okay. Let's see. Actually, I think I can just delete some bits. So let's see how this reads. All right, so Dave, you've got Christine has overcome the trial of the box, gotten the key, and has decided to go look for a door to fit this key into. And she comes across, as she advanced toward the fork, Etienne staggered into view, presumably from the stairwell. His head was wreathed in black mist, his shadow doubling and writhing like a living being. Christine froze for a moment. Her breath caught in her throat as she noticed what appeared to be a gun in his right hand. Fuck, fuck, fuck! Suddenly, she recalled her own armament, so feeble in the face of a firearm. Still, it was all she had. She readied the insert weapon here. Okay, you have to go. Have a good evening, Daniel. I will talk to you later. Have a good day, evening, whatever. Weekend. I don't know when I'm going to talk to you. Have a good one. Okay. Christine readies the weapon in front of herself defensively. So, if Etienne is not happy with you, and he was dismissive and did not help you in the face of danger in the last act, that won't help you. The Frenchman's accent had thickened in his weakened state. It took Christine a moment to parse the English. He sniffed at her lack of understanding. Yay!
Are refreshing. Thanks, Dragons of Saturn.
I stuck one thing on top of another thing. I need to move some of these little guys around. Huh? I have all the. Here we go. I'll move that over there. Okay. Next time somebody redeems something, it won't put like 5 things on top of each other. Yay! Okay. So that won't help you. The Frenchman's accent had thickened in his. I don't want to say weakened in this one because he doesn't come off as weaker because the darkness is strengthening him, not weakening him. Because when he's nice to you, the darkness has weakened him. When he's not nice to you, the darkness is strengthening him. So his accent has thickened in his, let's just put transformed state. How about that? Okay, that won't help you. The Frenchman's accent had thickened in his transformed state. I cannot do a French accent, so we're not trying to do that. It took Christine a moment to parse the English. He sniffed at her lack of understanding, gesturing to the implement in his hand. Off with you. The darkness enveloped him and seemed to pour out of his mouth as he spoke. His shoulder brushed hers as he strode past, and strings of shrill, unreasoning fear pierced her from 1,000 directions. She quavered, but held her ground, immobile for some time after she no longer heard his footfalls. I think that's better. It's not, he's just gesturing to the gun and basically like, don't fuck with me, go away now. Okay, bye. Don't come and talk to me is what the vibe is here. So that's fine. And so after that, she has to sort through what has just happened to her, or what has happened, and I feel like he probably would have been okay. At the end of Act 2, there is one possibility where Etienne kills Kiaran. So I feel like if that happened, then he would be actually probably more aggressive still.
Yes.
So, but I don't know that he would have been, I don't know that he would necessarily be super, super aggressive towards Christine per se. Let me see. Let me go look at Act 2 I have executed. And, it's right here. Perfect. Okay. So, all right, just for the benefit of people watching / listening, I suppose I will go ahead and read some of this stuff that happened at the end of Act 2. So, Etienne swung his axe. Okay, let me turn that music off. Etienne swung his axe swiftly, yet with without great force towards Kiaran, sizing up his opponent's reaction speed and general skill level. In a fair fight, the author had far more experience and skill. This Christine knew just by watching his movements. But this was hardly a fair fight. Please, Etienne, beat him, she silently prayed. I'm scared. Just then, Kiaran brought the sledge up and lunged, swinging it full force at the author's torso. Etienne leapt backwards, ramming into a car. Dropping the hammer completely, Kiaran bore down into his opponent, planting a foot between Etienne's legs and seizing him by the throat with both hands. The void fire crawled down Kiaran's arms and licked at the author's flesh. He tightened his neck muscles and kneed Kiaran in the groin, to no effect. Growling, he let his axe drop to the floor, driving both of his arms up between Kiaran's and grabbing his head. Twisting his body, Etienne freed himself from the possessed man's grasp and slammed his skull into the side of the car. Once, twice, thrice. I have executed many a man, sirrah, uttered Etienne coolly, the scent of blood filling the air as he strode over to the prone body of the zealot, picking up the heavier sledgehammer and kicking the axe behind himself so that he lie between Kiaran and the weapon. Let us end this. He growled low in his throat, remaining a healthy distance from the fallen form, which was covered with void flame. The author drew back the hammer, and Christine gasped and turned away, covering her eyes. She'd already seen death. She had no interest in witnessing more. Thud, thud, crack, thud, thud. Christine dry heaved once at the sounds. Then, as the stench of French, I cannot read this because it's not in Scrivener. I know that sounds stupid, but seriously. Okay, Christine dry heaved once at the sounds. Then, as the stench of freshly exposed viscera filled her lungs, she turned her head and vacated her stomach of its contents, bile rising in her throat as all faded to blessed white nothingness once more. So, Etienne is not being violent to her, but he's definitely not a happy man. Yeah, not a happy man. Okay, and let's see. Oh, hey, I forgot. I forgot that there's a randomized element at the end of the act. And there's a segment called Boys Will Be Boys. And one of the boys kills the other one. And it's randomized. So that's fun. I forgot I did that. Yay me. Okay, yeah, so I think this is still fine. Like, he wasn't focused on her and he wasn't being aggressive towards her at all, but he is scary as shit. So, her being scared, but him not being necessarily very aggressive with her, I think works tonally for this. So, cool. Okay. Now, the thing that I don't know
Incoming ad break.
is whether I want to mess with trying to write all of the summaries of all the different sections, because I think what I need to do now is like go back through and reread all of the endings for the garage section, because I'm going to have to go through and refresh my memory properly on all the different ways it could end, given that I had this lapse due to all the stuff going on caretaking-wise. So I think this might be a good place to call it for the stream for this evening then, because if I need to do a bunch of additional, like, refreshing my memory of the last section, that's going to take a bit of time, and I've made a little bit of progress. It's not a huge, like, it doesn't look like a huge amount of progress because I mostly just was doing proofreading, but I did proofread all the stuff I did this morning, and I went through and started the process of refreshing my memory. So yeah, I think that's good. Thanks to everybody who showed up for this weird little stream of me typing and working on this thing. If folks like it, I can do more of this in the future as I continue to work on my game projects / text venture novel-y type thing. Yay, thank you. Also, I need to get out of Dodge because Kay's going to be starting soon anyway, if she hasn't already. So, yeah, I'll be hopping over to Kay's stream. And for anybody else who does not know Duckfeed TV streaming, definitely go and check it out. Let me see if I can. Can I shove everybody over there? Is she currently live? Oh, she just started. Perfect. Okay. I don't know how to raid. I'm going to figure out how to raid now. Okay, we're going to raid. Let me just figure out how real quick. Okay. That's mod actions. Okay, I'm terrible. Oh, here, I think that's a raid. Yay! Okay, we're going to go raid Duckfeed. Let's go.